Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. I know most of you are friends and family coming to see this, as this is an interview with my grandpa, John Evans, author of Saving Each Other in Stuart, England. Great book. I really enjoyed it. And if you want to hear my spoiler-free thoughts on it, go watch the other video that I have on my channel. It's a fine video, I think. It could have been better. But I do think that you should read the book and see that review before coming and watching this interview, simply because we do get into the nitty-gritty of the story, and we are going to spoil a lot. That said, if you're going to watch anyway, enjoy yourself, stay to the end, and thanks for watching my video. All right, that looks pretty good. What do you think? This is for posterity.
Hi, posterity.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, we'll do it like this.
Okay.
Okay. This is thanks for coming by. So, for those who are just joining us in our live studio audience, my name is Johnny. This is yeah?
Yes, John Allen Evans.
Yes?
I'm proud to claim to be his grandfather.
Yeah, I am proud to be his grandson. And we are talking today about his book, Saving Each Other in Stuart, England. I recently read this, and I had a blast reading it. And I kind of realized I had a unique opportunity to actually speak to the author about it. And so here we are kind of just chatting about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess the first question is going to be, I have a list of questions. My first question is, I guess, just to kick things off, is what is this book about? Right? Tell me what this book is about.
It's about a young woman who's being forced into an unwanted marriage to save her family from the political problems that arose from them being on the wrong side in the English Revolution. And to escape, she's permitted to go and spend a year with her uncle, who is governor of Jamaica. On the way there, she's captured by pirates. She is rescued. And over time, falls in love with her rescuer.
Spoiler. We're getting into spoilers. We're getting into spoilers.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and that's a fantastic premise, right? Just start out like right off the bat, fantastic. I guess my question is, what kind of inspired you to write this? Right, it's a very unique plot. I mean, it reminds me quite a bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, right? It reminds me a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean. But what inspired you to write this particular story?
The history. The English monarchy kept flipping back and forth from one religion to the other. So there were major changes in who was in and who was out, kept going back and forth, and it seemed to me that was a perfect background for a romance.
I agree. After reading the book, I completely agree. But we were talking a bit earlier over dinner about this. Why Stuart, England? See, I'm very familiar with the Victorian classics,
Yes.
right? I'm even kind of familiar with some Edwardian stuff, but
Yes.
I'd never even heard of Stuart, England.
No, you're right. We skip that in America, and they're British.
Yeah, don't we?
We pick up in the 1700s, which was leading to the Revolution, and we all like to read about King Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth,
Who doesn't?
who was at the beginning of the 1600s. But this is that small period in between. When Queen Elizabeth died, there were no Plantagenets, that's Henry VIII's family, left to take over. So that they grabbed the closest relative, who was the King of Scotland, and brought him down. He was a Stuart, and his family ruled England for 4 or 5 generations.
Generations. Okay, well,
Yes.
yeah, I just didn't know it all.
Yeah.
So history was clear, and especially after reading your book, it's very clear that you have a passion for the history.
I do.
Right? Yeah,
I
yeah.
do. I'll confess that.
It's the book is absolutely dripping with it. It's absolutely dripping with the history. You go deep into especially the political turmoil, right? Especially the political turmoil. There's just pages of like, okay, well, this person's loyal to this person's loyal to this person.
I was very worried about that. But you simply can't understand the romance because the whole romance is being played out against that background.
Right. Well, and it ends up working out very, very well, right? You once you understand that, the stakes of what happens to Kezia, the main character, are just raised so much more, right? You understand, okay, Kezia is in such a miserable situation.
Yes.
With, what's his name? Wembley.
Oh, Ambrose.
Ambrose. Oh, I hated that guy. And I kept calling him Wembley because it sounds like a silly name. I love. See, that's actually something that I thought was not to get too deep into spoilers here, but I really liked Wembley first, or Ambrose first came across as kind of like a Mr. Collins character.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
But Mr. Collins is rather kind of bumbling and incompetent in some ways.
But he's innocent.
Right, but yeah, entirely innocent, harmless, totally harmless. Ambrose is not. No. Ambrose turns out to be quite the villain.
Yes.
And that was brilliant, right? Like you reach a certain part in any novel, and it's a turning point, right? That turning point is when things get really kind of dicey. And Ambrose being like, essentially turning into this very not harmful, or a very harmful person.
Yes.
Was a great choice. I really liked that. Something else that I'm sorry, I'm kind of fanboying a little bit here.
No, go ahead.
I'm getting something else that not just the history was a big part of it, right? Like we were talking about. Something else that is kind of very prevalent in the book that I wanted to ask you personally about was the fashion. You go deep into fashion. Every dress that Kezia wears is detailed. Tell me about that.
Well, that's because I love romance novels.
Yeah.
And I found they always describe all the clothes they're wearing in romance novels.
Yeah.
And since I basically wrote this for the romance
right
audience,
yeah,
I thought, okay, I better but I had to spend a lot of time researching women's clothing in the 1600s.
What is your favorite Kezia outfit in the entire book?
Her riding outfit.
Yes. Yeah.
That was my favorite.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
I like the green ball gown that she had when her and
when they dance.
Yes. And they stop at the end and everyone else leaves. And yes. Lovely moment. I love that dress. I feel like such a dork. I'm not normally used to reading romance novels.
Yeah.
And so getting excited about little things like that is I'm not very used to it, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit. So I did have some other questions that I wrote down because I knew I was going to forget them. Questions for the author. Yes, so there are a lot of places as well that you visited, or that are visited in the story.
Yes.
How many of these places have you visited?
Let me think. I've been to Jamaica. I've been to Rotterdam. And now I've been to Amsterdam. I'll tell you a fun little story, though.
Please.
I rewrote this 9 times.
9 times?
This is the 9th version of that story. Okay, so, and it took years. It's not, I didn't sit down to do it.
Can you put a number on that? How many years?
Oh, probably 4 or 5 years. And luckily COVID came along, so I had a lot of time to do nothing else but to research.
Not a sentence that you normally hear, right? Luckily COVID. Yeah.
But it's what was the question?
Yeah, sorry. It was how many of these places have you actually been to?
Okay, I haven't been to that many, but I can research. Oh, but this is what's fun about it. They had to live in a place near Bristol. Bristol plays an important role in it. And I needed a baron there because her father had to be a baron.
Right.
Well, it turns out, John, that we have an ancestor who was a baron in Gloucester in the 1600s.
That is
so
wild.
Her father and mother in the book are real characters.
Really?
Yes, and they're your ancestors.
That's wild.
Is that a kick?
Yeah.
I discovered that in writing the book.
There are a handful of historical figures throughout the book.
Yes.
Where they showed up and I was like, this character is one of John's favorite. They're real people. Real people.
Well, and the bishop in London, he's a real character, and he played that role in English history.
You mentioned that at the back of the book.
Yeah.
You mentioned that he does the Princess of Orange.
Yeah.
That's a good subject. Captain Henry Morgan.
Don't you love him?
Yes, I loved it. I was actually rather surprised. As far as I knew, he was, just kind of a scoundrel, kind of a rotten.
Yeah.
We talk about him.
No,
like
he gets bad
pirate.
press. Come on.
Yeah. So why? I guess that's quite a bold move, right? To make historical fiction such a big part of it, right?
Wait a minute. To make him a matchmaker?
Well, yeah.
That was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So I guess my question is why did you choose to include historical figures, real historical? I mean, among them my own ancestors, as I've recently learned.
Yeah.
why did you choose to lean so deeply into that?
Well, I had to explain, why Alex was where he was when he met Kezia.
Right.
There had to be a connection with pirates
Right.
and spying on pirates.
And who would be a better
Yes.
pirate?
No, but that's really true. Henry Morgan became the assistant governor of Jamaica. That's true.
Yeah.
So he had that role.
I ended up doing a little bit of Googling, and I was quite
Yeah.
surprised. It was his age was called the Golden Age of Pirates.
Yes.
And that's amazing, right? What a time to...
And he made a fortune. When he raided Panama City, when those ships, they had to put ballast in the bottom
Right.
of the ships to keep them from tipping over. After his raid on Panama, they used silver as the ballast in his ships.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because that's how much silver they got.
I see what you mean.
The valuable stuff was upstairs.
Right. They're like, just leave the silver down at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So I guess that also kind of leans into what we were talking about before with how like history is a big part of this for you.
Yes.
The historical context, the people involved. That's actually rather fun to think about, right? So my I guess the follow-up question to that is how much time did you ever find like inaccuracies or inconsistencies within the history with your story, right? Like, did you ever find things that like didn't like you were like find yourself writing the story and then go, oh, rats, they were dead by then? Did you have anything like any inconsistencies with the history?
Yes. For example, the weapons. I had to change the weapons sometimes. They were still using halberds instead of, flintlocks and stuff.
Right.
I had to research the appropriate weapons. I don't know what else. Ships. I don't know anything about sailing. I had to do a lot of research on sailing.
Yes, there's a lot to learn about that.
Yeah.
There was something that you had mentioned about this is another spoiler. I'm just gonna mark this. I'm just gonna mark this
No,
for
it's
later.
okay. It's okay.
Everyone who watches this, you are running into spoiler territory now. So you click off now, finish the book. Click off now, finish the book. The earthquake.
Yes.
You mentioned at the end that was something that you had to account for.
Yes.
Later on. Tell me about that, because it is a cataclysmic moment.
It's very famous because everything it says about the wickedest city on earth was true. It was a pirate haven.
Hive of scum and villainy.
I mean, if you want to search on Wikipedia, they have some pretty hair-raising stories about that town.
I don't know if I will.
And in one day, it disappeared.
It just disappeared.
Yeah, it just slid into the ocean.
It just got Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah.
It got Sodom and Gomorrah.
It's exactly. And so that's it's begging to be part of the story, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like it really fit into a lot of the themes of like good Christian, right, people.
Yeah, come on, you got to have justice somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's correct me if I'm wrong, but that ends up being a very common theme throughout the story of these Christian people who have true, like, really good desires.
Yes.
Finding favor in the eyes of people in positions of power and finding ways around the obstacles placed in front of them by,
It's a very religious story. And that's not unusual for this time. This is the time of the Puritans in England. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, 1621 is Plymouth Rock. So
yeah.
The characters are very religious, but they're not intolerant.
Right. That was something that I really liked reading about when Kezia meets Maria's family.
Yeah.
That was a moment that I was like, I love that moment. I loved everything that had to do with Maria's family.
Yeah.
But I'm reading Dracula right now.
Uh-huh.
And Dracula, I did not know that it was such a Christian novel, right? Van Helsing will go on monologues about the nature of humanity and the nature of the fallen man and how there are good men and good women, and how we should be fighting for that goodness. And I found it very reminiscent of what you'd written. If I might say so, I think I enjoyed reading your book a little more than I'm enjoying reading Dracula.
I don't have any Dracula there. Well, I don't know. Ambrose gets close.
Right, yeah. And El Diablo's not the greatest fellow either. But something that I had an issue with was in Dracula. A big issue that I have in Dracula is Abraham Van Helsing Van Helsing is very clearly a self-insert character. The writer of Dracula is Bram Stoker or Abraham Stoker. So Van Helsing will go on just these monologues about human nature and about it's very clearly Bram Stoker kind of inserting himself into the story. Were there any characters like that for you who you felt like this is if I was in this story and I got to be someone in this escapist fantasy? Or this romantic fantasy, who do you think you're the most similar to, or is there anyone that you inserted yourself into as?
It's kind of funny. I think with your young, you would want to identify with Alex.
Of course, I mean, I wanted to, yeah.
But for me, I want to identify with her father. He's a good man.
Yeah.
And he's made difficult choices and suffered the consequences, but he and his wife have done a wonderful job of creating a good family.
Yeah, they really did. I liked that a lot. I appreciate well, not that I know that they're my ancestors. I really appreciate that. I liked the family dynamic quite a bit. We both are. I come from a big family, thanks to you, right? Yeah.
No, but a family this close.
Yes. And the intimacy.
And you're different.
Yes.
But you like the difference.
I absolutely loved how all of the brothers treated Kezia. I have a single, a solitary sister in a family of boys. Yeah. And I liked quite a bit the way that was portrayed. I've seen families, just any family dynamic, I've seen it completely ruined by other stories who just have no idea how to write families. And I feel like it was captured very well here. One of the opening scene is Kezia overhearing her brother
eavesdropping on her brothers.
and I think that is so I'll be honest, that's so us. That's very us. We'll many times my siblings will we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation about other siblings saying okay, how can we best help this situation? This is what I know, is it do we what can we do to best help our sibling? Because we care about them. We care about them very deeply. It doesn't happen that often, right? It only happens when there's a real issue that we have to worry about. This person's not showering enough.
That's serious.
Right, yes. But it is when you really do care about someone, you talk about them, you help, you get your resources together and you help them. And that's something that happens quite a bit in your novel, and I like that. Okay, I'm talking quite a bit for this interview that I'm giving.
Good, thank you.
What was the hardest part to write? Tell me about the writing process for you. How often did you write? What was the hardest part for you to write? And how long did it take, to get it published or to get it, go to an editor?
Well, I wrote as about 1/3 of the length it ended up being. I went to a conference at UVU and talked to a agent, and he said, no, you can't say anything less than 80 or 90,000 words. So I was way short of that. And he was very suspicious of my writing a romance. But I am a fanatical fan of Georgette Heyer, who is the master of romance writing. And I told him, well, I read my higher novels to rags, and that lifted me in his estimation.
Yes.
And then your mother and others read it and made very good suggestions. In fact, I rewrote a whole major scene in there.
Yes.
To follow her input. But you go over and over again. The problem I found is that you'll have an ending situation, but you have to go back and create the predicate for it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so what was so because we're in spoiler territory already, you know that. The ending situation is kind of this big climactic. It's a climactic confrontation, but it requires quite a bit of build-up and quite a bit of planning, right? The characters spend a lot of time getting everything in order all the way through. And so that you're saying that was kind of something that you had to do a lot of research
The other
into.
big fear I dealt with is the history is so complicated. I was really afraid I was going to lose readers. And there's several places in there, maybe too much, where we go back and review the history so that they can follow what's going on.
I never had an issue with that.
Okay.
I never had an issue with that while we were reading it.
Like she explains it all to Maria. in the boat.
That was very natural.
Yeah.
That was very natural. I actually think the time in the skiff was that was right. The skiff. The catch. Thank you. There's a lot of sailing stuff, isn't there? The time in the catch was some of my favorite parts of the book. Very romantic.
Did you like my biblical reference to Job?
I did like that.
Did you look it up? That's the question.
I did.
I want everyone to look it up.
I liked that quite a bit. I liked that every time there was that you made lots of reference to other things, history, Bible, and you gave lots of opportunities for people to go and look those things up themselves. So that was something that you had to kind of go back and fill in those moments.
Yes.
I felt like that moment was very natural. I think you did a good job. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I may say so.
But I'll ask you, my main goal was for you to like Kezia.
I did. By the end of the book, I really, really liked Kezia.
That was my main goal.
Kezia, at the beginning, I had a hard time liking Kezia. She is unadventurous. She can be a little helpless. She sometimes just sits around and prays and waits for people to help her.
Yeah.
By the end of the book, she's proactive. She makes hard decisions.
Yeah.
She is... Oh my gosh, when she... Spoilers. When she breaks Alex out of prison.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yes. Wasn't that fun?
Yes. And the way she presented her to her family.
That's my favorite scene in the whole book.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was really great. It made me laugh. I genuinely had a good chuckle about that. But I liked that. By the end of the book, and I want to hit on that.
Okay.
Now, by the end of the book, when Kezia and Alex are hanging out on the Seagull, and they're chatting about, what's next for us, what's next for our family.
Oh, yes.
It felt like a very natural ending. I was like, I'm very happy. This feels very like personal, and I love that. And then you added in just the very last line of the whole thing. You add a little tease, and it made me laugh when I read it. I was just
good.
It was like
good.
John Evans. So I guess my question is, are we ever going to see Kezia and Alex again in a short story or any other things, or is this story?
I don't know. It was a lot of work.
Well, if you ever do, I'm sure I would certainly be happy to
All
read
right, thank you.
even if it's just a short story, right? You don't need 90,000 words.
Thank
You can be a good 30, right? That's fine. I thought that was great. I thought that was really, really great.
Good.
But I liked that quite a bit. I liked quite a bit that you made. There was a lot to it, and a big part of the romance. I've always seen romance stories, and the romance happens once the characters have gotten married. The marriage and the admission of love is kind of the climax.
Yes, they end with the marriage.
Right. Yeah. And we never see a married couple.
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, we never see that.
Right.
And if we do, the married couple is always just in turmoil, right? Like they just can't get their stuff together.
Yeah.
But Kezia and Alex have a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
Tell me why you chose to do something that seems to me so antithetical to the romance genre.
That's the story of my life.
Yeah.
Yes. Best thing that ever happened. I was overseas as a missionary for 2.5 years. I come home. Everyone says, "Did you have any adjustment when you got home?" I said, "Yeah." It was like going to heaven. I got married. I had good food. Somebody was washing my clothes. Everything got better when I got married.
Yeah. I mean, going from Taiwan.
Yes.
Going from Taiwan to Mary Ann's house.
That's right.
Yes.
So my experience of marriage is way better after marriage than before.
So you specifically included that in there. Tell me about that. Tell me why you chose to include that.
It's a shame, but it seems it's almost rare in our culture to depict a happy marriage. And I wanted to say, no, marriages can be really, really happy, and couples can really, really be in love, and they can do good things together.
Yes.
I wanted to say, that's not made up. That's real, John. That's real.
I know it. Haley's just such a lovely wife.
Yeah.
And a good friend.
Yes.
A really good friend.
Exactly. I wanted to show that they were real friends.
Yes. And they were.
Yeah.
They really were. And I wondered why the title, right, was so long. Saving Each Other in Stuart, England, right? It's such a long title. But they save each other all the time.
Well, the reason the title's so long is there are other books named Saving Each Other. So I had to throw something in there so you can tell the difference.
I like that. But I like that quite a bit. I like that quite a bit. Do you think that modern stories? Why do you think modern stories shy away from happy marriages and friendships in marriage?
I don't think it's unhealthy. I think they're trying to be helpful. But if you have a society where half the marriages end up divorce, then you have all kinds of children growing up with trying to understand why marriage isn't happy. And I think sometimes they lose the vision that they can be happy. And I was trying to portray that.
I think you succeeded. I believe you succeeded.
Thank you.
Not only between Kezia and Alex, but also with her parents.
Yes.
Her parents are also a lovely couple.
Yes.
As well as Maria's family and
Donia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also her aunt and uncle in Jamaica.
Yes.
Love, like you portray it many times.
And there really are a lot of happy marriages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's. I mean, yeah. My parents, you guys.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would? This is the final copy, right? This is the final copy. It's done. Is there anything that you regret or that you would change looking back?
Yes, absolutely. I would hire a copy editor.
Okay.
There are typos in it that I didn't catch.
Explain what a copy editor
I hired an editor who went back and made suggestions on you need to do this and you need to do that, and frankly I disagreed with a lot of them. But copy editor is another thing. So, this word's repetitious, or you left an of out in this phrase.
Okay.
I didn't do that, and I would do that if I had it to do it over again.
Professional English teacher.
Exactly.
Kind of just, yeah.
Now, I did buy a book on apostrophes, and I spent days just going through looking at every apostrophe. So hang on. There's a book all about apostrophes. There is, yes.
All right. Well.
So it's So I mean, but I'm not a professional by any means.
Well, tell me about not the copy editor, right? But tell me about this your process and kind of your experiences with the editor.
Well, I don't want to be negative, okay?
Well, then don't be, right?
She's a good friend of ours, and she was an editor for her whole life. But frankly, I felt like she was trying to rewrite the story. And I started going along with that, and then I finally said, no, she can write her story, I'll write my story. But she still was very helpful. For example, a number of places she pointed out this isn't clear, or what's the background of this. But then, it's very difficult. You know what? Your book's like your child.
Yeah, it's your creation.
Well, how do you feel like if someone comes up and starts criticizing your child, even if they have a dirty diaper, right? So it's very hard to be an editor. I respect what a difficult role that is. And she was very helpful, and I did use a lot of her suggestions. But I also talked to another author, and he said, you have to maintain control of your book.
Right.
Don't turn it over to the editor.
There were a lot of moments when I was reading your book where I thought, like, okay, this isn't quite like structured like a story that I'm used to, right? We have this they get together, right? The best scene in the book, or well, one of the best I think, is they break Alex out and he meets the family and they're married and it's this wonder, and it feels very conclusive. And then there's still 50 pages left of the book, and we have to go save Maria's family.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, wow, there's a lot still happening here, and it was a little different than what I'm used to in reading a book, but it also felt very natural. By the time I finished, I thought, I see why he kept it the way that he did. The story was meant to be this way, even though it wasn't what I was quite used to, and so I could... No,
it's what you said before. Almost every romance novel ends when they get married.
Right.
Half this book is after they're married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get married rather early on,
yeah,
actually.
So it's different that way.
Yeah. So what I I know which scene my mother recommended. You had beta readers, right? Like
Yes,
my mother.
your mother was, yeah.
What was your experience with beta readers?
They were very helpful. They were. Well, I'll be specific. Your mother said, this kissing scene, she said, no, this is you got to really expand this. This is the high point of the book.
Right.
You can't do this in one paragraph. So.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole book. It is beautiful. It is really beautiful. How did you select beta readers? How did you select people to show your developing child?
It was just, who could I impose on? It was all your aunts.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were and Andrew, he read it too.
Oh yeah. Well.
And I was grateful because they encouraged me, and that's what you need. You just need encouragement more than anything else.
Right.
And I was grateful for that.
Do you think that it was kind of discouraging moving through it without any encouragement?
When I first wrote it, I wrote the first outline basically in a few days because I was just excited about the idea. But that is so different than plotting through tens of thousands of words. Yeah.
And what got you through writing those tens of thousands of words?
I like my characters. I did. When you write a book, you're creating a world. And you have the right to create it any way you want. And you can put any kind of people in it you want. So, and frankly, I've read books where I think the author doesn't like his characters.
I know some of those.
And you wonder, okay, I'm sorry, but I like my characters, and I liked developing them, and you can do that. Okay,
was it painful for you to put these characters that you liked into painful situations?
Well, I knew they were going to come out okay.
Okay, well.
But I was proud of them. We can't get in the whole book, but Alex had real problems. He had a real difficulty.
He did.
And so, it didn't get resolved till quite a bit later into the book. So
he really does start. I worried when I first read him, this is some perfect pretty boy Casanova.
Yeah.
And he really does have a lot of issues that he's working through.
Yeah.
How did you decide they would work through those issues? You saw okay, Kezia is like this, Alex is like this. How do I get them there?
Well, that's a very good question. For example, he has to be a sword fighter. So I had to go back and do research on the Dutch East India Company and Chinese fighting styles in order to give him the background to prepare him for the events he played in the book.
Right. And I think those are well set up.
Yeah.
Even we had plenty of scenes where the girls went out on shopping trips.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite scenes was Alex going out on his sword shopping trip. It was great.
You understand that, don't you?
I actually, it's wild. He had a Toledo steel rapier. I've purchased a rapier from Toledo.
Really?
I have, yeah.
Well,
it's a Philip I replica.
I had to research that. They were the best.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they were. I served in Spain, and so I spent a P-Day in Toledo looking at swords.
How fun.
It was great, yeah. And so I got very excited when he found just the right sword. I knew the feeling.
Yeah.
When you look up and you see the rapier and you're like, that's the one.
That's the one.
What in your opinion was the darkest moment in this story?
I think it's when she's in prison in the pirate ship. She
right
has no hope.
Yeah.
No hope at all. And she's afraid that the ransom will ruin her family and do all kinds of bad things. So she falls back on prayer and humming hymns.
Do you think that's... Did you have a hard time writing that scene?
Yeah, I'm a little claustrophobic. And she's in this dark room with rats running around.
Right.
It's not a pretty scene. So I felt sorry for her.
Were there like were there other scenes that were kind of like difficult for you to write because of your personal tendencies and preferences?
Well, the Pirate's Hussy scene, that's getting a little edgy.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show that side of Kezia, okay?
Yes. Kezia was incredibly resourceful.
Yes. And she was having fun, okay?
Oh, she was, yes. There were a few moments like that where I was like, John.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I loved it. Did you ever think about cutting that scene? Because it's a bit edgy.
It is. But it's part of life. It's part of life.
How so?
She says, I can't quote it exactly, but she says, there's a place for modesty. I understand and approve all it represents, but this is not the time for it.
I remember that line.
Yeah.
And I liked that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. It showed not only her like daring as a character, but also her understanding of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you didn't take the easy way out and have, just things work out easy for them.
Yeah.
That she really did have to make like a daring decision.
Yes. A very brave one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I appreciated that you had, someone follow her around.
Ewan was helping around
just keep her
with
safe.
his cudgel.
Yes.
Don't you like him? He's a
yes,
fun character.
I like Ewan. I was very worried. Ewan was so prominent in those sections. I was like, is Ewan going to betray them? It's like, no. They have good friends.
Yes.
They've treated them well.
Yes.
I liked that. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I think while we're on the subject of maybe some kind of tender subjects, you include a slave family with Orpheus.
Yes.
That is not only crucial to rescuing Maria's family, but it's also it's a bit of a touchy subject.
Very.
Why did you choose to include that in there?
Because that was real. Probably the majority of the population in Jamaica was slaves. And to write about Jamaica in the 1600s and not talk about the slaves and what role they were playing, it's just not real.
Right. Yeah.
I hope I wasn't insensitive. But I grew up in the South during segregation. So I have a little understanding of how blacks were treated and their qualities not respected. And I wanted to make him a very respectable person.
He was.
That's what I wanted to do.
He wasn't just respectable, he was absolutely crucial. Yes. Right? It wouldn't have worked without him. Nothing would have worked without him.
But the story of the Maroons, that's true.
I assumed as much, yeah.
That's true. So
tell me about what happened to them. I didn't go and look that
up. No,
up.
they survived. These were runaway slaves. They had a part, they had part of Jamaica where they were safe. They could defend themselves. It wasn't easy.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
But there wasn't escape for slaves in Jamaica.
Right. I really do have quite a bit of respect for you for putting that in. Mm-hmm. Not to butter you up too much, but when I read that, I was wow, you dive right into these issues that are still rather sore subjects today, for good reason, and I think that you handled it very well. In my personal humble opinion, I think you handled it well. I just as much as you handled the differences in religion, right? We did not belong to the Protestant nor Catholic faiths that the protagonists profess. Yeah. And so I was very impressed with how you approached that.
Well, I wanted to be very respectful because I honestly am very respectful. So, I
and very humble. Yes.
I didn't want to. Well, I didn't want to make any religion look right or wrong. But I wanted to show how important religion was in their lives.
Right. And I think you did a good job of
Yeah.
showing that,
Yeah.
especially when they disagreed.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a moment where people Maria didn't go off on the Pope, right?
Yeah.
Like that. There's never a moment like that.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I like that a lot. I think that is an approach. Once again, religion isn't something that a lot of people include in stories.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah. You don't see that in a lot of romance novels.
No. But I think that was quite great. I like that quite a bit. Let's see what else I got. You already said how long did this take? Writing, editing process. Anything you'd change? Hardest part to write. Romance after the altar. Why Stuart, England? How many places have you visited? Are we getting a sequel? I think we kind of hit all the stuff.
All right.
Is there anything that show us your copy here. I wanted to just touch on this briefly before we're done. You include a little Welsh flag here.
That's right. So I can tell my copy from everyone else's.
All right. Yes. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of like, you felt like hasn't been talked about, or that you would like to expound on that you feel like wasn't expounded on here or in the book? Now's a great time to get an open mic.
I wrote it about my wife. Marianne is a lot like Kezia. So I felt like I was not having to make up a character. She was bright, she was cheerful, she was brave, unflinching in the face of very great difficulties. It just blessed my life every day.
In a way, this whole book is a love letter to a lot of things, aspects in your life, right?
Yes.
History and travel and a absolutely wonderful marriage. In fact, if you haven't seen the cover of the book, tell me about the cover of this book. Why did you choose what this is?
This is Queen Henrietta, the wife of Charles I, with my wife's face imposed on top of the portrait.
Why did you choose this image? Why did you choose to Photoshop Marianne's face on?
I chose that image, one, because it's not copyrighted. It's in the National Art Gallery, and you can use their images. And two, it's the right period and the right clothes.
Right.
And the background is a picture I took, I think, in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
With a little pirate ship there in the background.
Oh, and that pirate ship is from Sydney Harbor in Australia.
Wow.
These are pictures that I had.
This is just travel and history and your wife. I love that. I really do. The truth is that I'm reading a lot of books right now, and I want to do reviews of them. I think it'd be fun. But it's very hard for me to give an honest review about this book, because every now and then I would read it and I could hear you telling the story.
Okay, thank you.
I saw you so much in this story, right? And I don't know if you remember Piao Miao, right?
Oh, yeah, the favorite.
Yeah, Piao Miao was it was a project we did where John wrote a book or wrote a short story.
Yeah.
And we had him voice over it, and then all of his children and in-laws all like film. They did a film of the short story,
and it was hilarious.
Oh, it was amazing! Yeah, I loved it. But when I read this, I get those same vibes, right? And I don't know how to explain that. Where like I'd read something and I'd be like, "That is just John," right? That sounds like just a story, a bedtime story for me. It was really, really lovely, and I loved reading it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And I can only unfairly recommend it to everyone because I enjoyed it so much. So all right, well, I think that's kind of
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You've inspired me. I've even started writing stuff myself.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Look, and let me tell you, the outline's the fun part, right? The 20,000 words is difficult. The 90,000 words is difficult. But I appreciate not only the example that you've set for me in your
that's
this
super.
life. Yeah, but the example that you've set for me in writing a book.
Good.
It's inspired me to go like, I can do this too. If John can do it, I can do it because I know him. Right, authors are always kind of like these incredible, golden angels in heaven, and I'm like, no, it's a person, and I'm a person, and I can write a book, and I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You guys
What a
have a great
treat.
day. Yes. So you made it to the end of the video. You know what to do now. You need to subscribe, and you need to like the video, and you need to share it with everybody else so that they watch it too. You need to send me money, I think. Send me money. That's a good one. You should send me 2, 3 billion, trillion? Who's to say? I'm really grateful that you came and watched my video. If you have any other questions, reach out to John Evans personally or to me so that we can talk a little bit more about this. I do recommend that you read the book, and I recommend that we talk about it because we have a wonderful opportunity of knowing the author here. Thanks so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Mwah.